Hello, everyone. Welcome to LOA Uncorked. This is Holly.
And this is Gina.
And this is a special day.
A very special day.
We're talking about new stuff today. I
Yes.
almost said new shit today, but
I think I'm going to get some actual style today. That's what I'm hoping for.
Heck yes.
What do you think about that?
I think it might.
In order? Is it in order?
Well, I'm not judging, Gina. You always look beautiful to me.
I know.
And we're going to talk about aging beautifully, in style, perfectly.
Just in time.
With the amazing Carine Camera. She has started a lifestyle brand for styling and aging and beauty. And guess what else, Gina? This is the part. I mean, I like all of it. All of it's really good. Right up our alley.
Okay.
She's an acupuncturist and a healer.
I know. And a podcaster.
Yes, and a fellow
podcaster.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Welcome, Carine, to LOA Uncorked.
Good morning, Carine.
Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thrilled to have you here today.
Yes.
So, Carine, what we typically like to do is have our guests kind of share a little bit about themselves, just a quick overview of who you are, how you arrived to where you are today, and what's important to you. Just some real quick, 5-minute highlight reel of Carine, and then we'll take the conversation further.
Okay.
Great.
Well, as you mentioned, my name is Carine, and I was born in New York City. My parents were immigrants from Africa. They came to New York City via Paris, and they were fashion designers. So I grew up in the fashion district of New York, and my mom's motto was, you want to look good to feel good. So I was always dressed well, and it was always a big part of my lifestyle when I was growing up. And as I got older, I wanted to do something that would serve people, and I was put in an acupuncture school. Life put me there, working as an office manager. And I started to get treatment because I had a cyst on my ovary. So this is like after college. I'm like 20s. I'm thinking about going into style. I'm thinking about what am I going to do with my life. And with this cyst really shifted everything because the doctor was like, you need to get surgery. And I was scared. But I was also scared of needles because I was working at an acupuncture school. But the needles were less scary than surgery.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got acupuncture, and within 2 months, my menstrual cramp decreased, and my cyst went away. And for me, it was such a miracle because at that moment, I was having really bad menstrual cramps and headaches and digestive stuff, and that changed everything for me. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to drop everything I was thinking about, and I'm going to become an acupuncturist because it made such a big difference for me. Then I moved to California, and I've been in California for the last 15 years, focusing on acupuncture, building a practice around women's health and all of this, and kind of focusing on pelvic health and pregnancy and fertility and all of these things. And then at the same time, I'm still taking care of myself, right? I'm working on my spiritual path, learning how to love and accept myself, figuring out how I can age gracefully. I started getting gray hairs in places I thought didn't get gray hairs.
Yeah, you know what? They do not teach you that stuff in like health, and they do not tell you. No, and when you see it, it is startling.
Very.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
And I started freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting older and I'm not living the life I want to live. And I was complaining about my body. At 35, I was like, still trying to be the weight I was at 25.
Yeah.
I was still struggling on not accepting my body and figuring out how I looked when I was in my early 20s, which is impossible. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to stop waiting. I'm going to start enjoying my life. And it took from 35 to 40, because when I hit 40, I had to real freak out because I was like, okay, now this is really happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? F it. I'm going to enjoy my life.
That's right.
And then the pandemic happened, and then that really doubled down on everything because I felt, my mortality, like everyone else's mortality, became into question. I was like, a little virus I can breathe can kill me. So what am I waiting for? I know I'm getting older. It's inevitable. We're all aging. There's nothing we can do about it. So instead of fighting it and resisting it, how can I lean into it and learn to accept and love it and enjoy the rest of my life here on the planet, and also bring something to the community? Because I feel like as women get older, we're not celebrated. We're told to be invisible, or it's implied we should be invisible. Especially a lot of my friends are much, much older than me, like in their 70s and 60s. And I started styling them for my friend's wedding. And then it became this thing where people were like, well, why don't you do this for a living? You always dress so well. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Why don't I do something that involves fashion and beauty and lifestyle and all the things that I love personally that have helped me so much in my life, and bring this happy, joyful energy into the space of healing.
Gosh,
I love that. And
Love
so
this story.
then Carrinna was born. So it's Carr.
Carina was born.
INNA. So
And-
we'll put
and-
all that
yeah.
in the, because it's not exactly the spelling. So it's double R's, double N's. Okay, that's what.
Double R's, double N's, yeah.
As a Gina,
Carina, yeah.
Jeanna, I get you.
Yeah.
Carina. Yeah. I like it. I like
It's
it.
really because, so funny story why the
Yes.
brand is called Carina. My mom actually wanted to name me Carina. But
Beautiful
my
name.
dad misspelled my name. When he put the birth certificate, he put an E instead of an A.
Yeah. And that story is told
Which I
many
think
times.
is so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think it's so funny. I don't know why I think that was so funny. And
You know,
so
it
I
is.
was
It is funny. It's
so
great.
anyway, and I love Carine. I love my name, and so I thought it would be an ode to my parents to put, at least to my mom, to put the brand name, and I
I
thought
think
that
that's-
the interesting spelling was easier.
I think that's beautiful. And
I love it.
I love to challenge the numerologists out there to figure that one out. That's, you know, when they look at your letters and they say your life path and your
Yes.
destiny path, like, is it Carine or is it
Is it
Carrinna?
Carrinna?
Or
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
Corinne? Or
It's Carina. Yeah.
Carina. Oh
Yeah,
my
I mean, a lot of people have called me Carina anyway with the E anyway, so it's just been interesting.
Oh,
so
I
it's
well,
been
it's
love
funny because
that.
we had
Yeah.
the same conversation like before the podcast. I'm like, well, it's Corinne, but it's Carina.
It's Carina. I said I listened to the podcast. It's Carina. She spells it. Yeah,
I
no,
love it.
that's
Okay,
awesome.
well,
That's awesome.
we'll put it in the show
Yeah,
notes.
for
It's
sure.
wonderful. And so, okay, I love this background
Okay,
in
I have so
style.
many questions.
Okay, well, do you want to?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So can you talk about your time and what you're currently doing with acupuncture? Let's start with that, and then I've got a bunch of questions on the fashion. That
And
have-
I need to talk
and I'm
about the
asking
body.
for a friend. Yes, and the body.
And
Yes.
you're asking for a friend.
Yeah, but
Speaking from somebody who wears black every single day,
Correct.
the same.
I think
Color.
she might. I think it's okay, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So talk about the acupuncture, because you know it's something like Holly was saying off air that you know we have really both started to see an acupuncturist and really finding this for me personally this great result in terms of flow in the body. You know that my chi is finally moving. Everyone, if everyone's been worried about me, my chi is moving. So can you talk a little bit about the acupuncture and how that weaves into the work you're doing in the world and your own personal development and learning over time, and kind of how it started for you back in your 20s and maybe where you are today with it, and what you think about acupuncture in terms of holistic wellness, maybe differently than when you started.
Yeah, you know, actually, acupuncture has been consistently from the same for me
Oh,
from
good.
the
Okay.
beginning to the end. Yeah, because I came into acupuncture, like I mentioned, because of my cyst. So it was a very physical issue, right? That I went in because I had a cyst on my ovary, and they did the acupuncture treatments, and with herbs and everything, the cyst dissipated. But what was more magical about that moment was the emotional reliefs I got, because I was in a relationship. I was breaking up with my ex, and there was all this emotionality around it that I was finding myself stuck. Should I leave New York? Should I stay in New York? And acupuncture really helped shift my whole energy around really what I wanted, and it helped me get so much clarity. And so there was such a huge emotional component to acupuncture. I started to see it as an energy medicine when I was 24, and I was like, this practice is more than just the physical. It really taps into the emotional space and the spiritual space. And so that's really what I really wanted to take away from the medicine. And I continued to study that while I was in school and afterwards, like learning the esoteric elements of the acupuncture, how acupuncture is related to chakras, how acupuncture is also an energy medicine. Then I started to learn energy medicine and how to incorporate that with acupuncture. And also, of course, working on the physical stuff. So I did more pelvic lessons and classes and all of this, because I really wanted to find the intersection between what happens to our physical body that's mostly emotionally related and where that gets stuck in the body. And so for me, that's been a big part of how I practice. It's really looking at the body as a storehouse for emotions and how the emotions get stuck somewhere, and then it totally affects our physical space. And then our physical is what we recognize, right? Like if we're tired, we're going to know, okay, we're tired, but we're not necessarily going to understand that we're depressed. Sometimes we are, but not all the time.
Right.
And so I really like helping people create that bridge to be like, hey, you have this happening in your pelvic area. Perhaps it's related to an unresolved pain with an ex or trauma or something else that's going on with you emotionally that hasn't been released through the physical space. And so it's really important to have a holistic mindset, even with acupuncture, making sure that you have a spiritual guidance, if that's something that you believe in, making sure that you have a therapist, going to an MD, also going to chiropractic care. Like it's not just a one facet approach to healing. It's definitely better to have multi modalities and different people looking at different perspectives. But ultimately, the best healer is you, like going inside of yourself and being like, okay, somebody said something to me today that didn't really sit well. It's sitting in my chest funny. I don't know, I didn't digest my food that well today. What's happening? So you can start to like put a connection between how you feel physically and how that is affected by your emotions. And then once you can get into the emotional space, then healing physically becomes much easier. And recently I've transitioned to doing a lot of energy healing with my acupuncture practice. So it's like, and I'll do an intuitive reading while we're doing the acupuncture, because sometimes it's that energy that needs to be released with the use of acupuncture that can really make the treatment more powerful. And then also moving into the facial acupuncture, because our face is so expressive and it holds so much tension and emotions that a lot of these wrinkles and lines are formed because of emotions being expressed over and over. The 11s that everyone wants to get rid of Botox, that's just anger and frustration and frowning. Like when we don't frown when we're happy, it's like, so why are you frowning, really? Like they call these the disappointment lines and you usually see them with older women and older men, right? Their mouth kind of sinks down and you look at these faces and you're like, what have you been disappointed by your whole life that you've never really expressed? And now it's just on your face all the time. And so working on the face also, besides the cosmetic aspect, it's also releasing these stored emotions and helping the client tap into the stored emotions for themselves. Like, who are you not forgiving? Who are you mad at? Yeah. Like, what are you holding on to? Because what you're holding on to is making you look old, not the other person. Right? So like, what can we do to help you?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Like, how can we like let go of all this stuff so that you can radiate from a place of pure joy and pure love for you, for yourself. Yeah. God, and then when you're coming from that space, you're received differently, and you can show up differently for the people that you love in your space and spread that joy and love to the people around you.
Well, I love that. What's beautiful about you is that you do incorporate that the energy side, the intuitive side, because I always thought, and Gina and I, we were going to acupuncture for a purpose. So,
physical
for example, my digestion isn't working, right? Okay. Right. Or I have a scar, like you said, Carine, like, I'm not fertility, but it works well for fertility. Thank God.
Your wing.
There's my shoulder, my frozen 50 shoulder. Okay. And I'm sure there's like stuck crap in there. It doesn't happen to everybody. Why is it in my shoulder? And I'm relatively healthy. So I knew about things like that. But I didn't realize, and I think what you've kicked it up a notch exponentially is you can just go in and say, I want to tune up and have an emotional tune up. So its emotions are in the body.
Right.
And
which makes sense when we think about the whole essence of acupuncture is energetic flow in the body. I mean, at its root, that is what it is, correct? I mean, it's just how
Correct.
things move in the body. And so if things are stuck, it would make sense that it would cause pain, disease, issues in the body if it doesn't move freely the way the body is supposed to move. It's like blood. It's no different than blood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's something that, I think, and I work with moms. I used to work with moms, and I still do, because I feel like moms will give birth and then go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And they
Right.
never,
Yes.
and a lot of moms don't take care of themselves in that postpartum period, especially if they have C-sections, they're going. And that scar is pretty significant. Like I have a client that had a C-section 20 years ago. And she was experiencing pain every time she went to the bathroom to have a bowel movement. She wasn't having pain during sex, but her libido wasn't really there because, it's not, energy wasn't really flowing in that area. We did 3 acupuncture sessions, 3, and the pain went away. And
Wow.
it's to a point when she comes every 3 weeks or so, and it's to a point where if she doesn't come, her husband's like, you need to go get acupuncture because it totally affects.
Oh my God.
It affects her her husband's nudging her, because when she gets acupuncture, her body is flowing and she's more in her body, then her libido's higher, so she's more interested in having intimate time with her husband.
Yeah.
But if she's not getting acupuncture over time, a few months, her husband's like, hey.
Oh, that's
I
so
love
that.
great. That's
I love
so
that.
great.
You don't think about
and
that.
for women, you don't see it. That's the thing.
Yep.
You don't realize that, the libido is dropping. You don't. I mean, we're so go 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 go
Well, you
go,
think
and not about
you're
ourselves.
taking care of the kids and you're doing all that.
I mean, you just
so
you
sex
kind
comes
of
last.
forget to
Yeah.
to check in, and it is sort of surprising, because then when you go do the acupuncture or the therapy or whatever you're doing, then when you feel so much better, you're like, why did I feel so bad? Why was I okay with feeling so bad?
Right.
But it is easy to have it slip again. And for women, and myself included, it's really hard to see sometimes until somebody else can point it out for me. Like Holly will go, I mean, it has nothing to do with libido, but she'll go, I just don't think you're feeling great. Like, you don't seem like you have the same energy or whatever it is, right?
Right.
I think it's super important to have people who can nudge you when that's not a high trait of yourself. You'll hopefully learn it over time, but to have somebody be able to support you in that way is great.
And the other thing that I think we've come across really recently is that we don't sit with our body and let our body talk to us. So we just go and we ignore maybe we don't even know it. We ignore some of those signs. So sitting with yourself, feeling how you feel in your body,
Right.
and then assessing, like you said, I love it. Acupuncture is a big deal, but energy healing is as well. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because I think you do remote sessions, and so you don't have to you don't have to, and people, this is mind-boggling for people, but I've had this done, and so has Gina had that done to her. You don't have to be in the same physical location. You don't have to have needles necessarily for this aspect of it. And you do that as well, correct?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do, actually, is to help people tap into themselves and what's really holding them back. And oftentimes the biggest thing I find is forgiveness. It's interesting. A lot of people are just holding on to these pains around brothers, oppressors, people that traumatize them, and helping people letting that stuff go and really tapping into their heart and tapping into their joy. And sometimes it's great to have an outsider look into their energy and be like, hey, this is what's going on, and these are things that you can do to shift that. And then what's fun now that I'm working with style and all this other things, it's helping women especially link their joy into something tangible, because oftentimes especially when we're working on something traumatic or painful, it's we're working on this painful thing, and sometimes it's hard to shift. So what I find now, it's okay, let's step into the joy. We understand that this traumatic thing happened, we can work on forgiveness, but let's find a way to bring that joyful energy into that painful space, as opposed to trying to work through this painful space and stay there.
Yeah.
Working on two things at the same time. So working through the pain, but also building up the joy.
Yeah.
And I find that's been the most transformative for me, not to get stuck. Because sometimes I've been working on myself for years, and sometimes you get stuck in your pain. You're like, I'm going through this and it's so traumatic. And now I'm just like, life is short. I want to go through the pain, but I also want to go through the joy at the same time.
Yeah.
So helping women find the colors that work for them, the style, the body, like, shopping, all these jewelry, things that make people feel happy. And then from that happy place, let's look at what happened to what your dad did. Mm-hmm. How can we shift that, or whoever the person is, or whatever the situation is? So coming from a joyful, positive space to heal. Right. As much as you can. It's not always possible, but let's help nudge you there, kind of thing.
But I'm impatient, and we like joy and fun, and we're all about that here. So I love let's work on ourselves. That's true, because it is a journey in life.
To do it, right?
But life is short, as you say. Mm-hmm. And so let's transition to the body, Gina.
Why did she say it like that? Let's transition, Holly. I agree. Yes.
Well, you should be holding a mirror up. I'm going to talk about myself, not you. Okay. So for somebody who has struggled their whole life and, with body issues, body image, spending too much of your energy, because what I feel like we do is, let me give you an example. So, I'm in my 50s, and I'll look, when I was in my 20s or my 30s, I thought, I'm not small enough. I'm not skinny enough. I don't look good enough. And you look back then and you look perfectly fine. Okay. So like, right. Okay.
You're so I'll just take that again.
I'll just take that again. And, it's like, there's never happy. And then there, of course, was weight gain, weight loss. And then it's hard to stay at a certain weight and keep your same clothes. Cause I like a lot of fashion. So I'm one of those people that loves that. But I'm like, I could easily get out of my clothes and move on to a new wardrobe, okay, which is horrible, okay? And so what happens is we spend so much energy on what we shouldn't be eating, what we shouldn't do, where we can't go to the beach because we don't look good in a swimsuit, where we don't want to go on the vacation, or where we don't feel sexy with the husband, partner, whoever, okay? And we spend so much time on that there's less time for our own creativity, and our joy doesn't show up. And I'm a pretty joyful person, but I can say that like that is still my Achilles heel. I mean, there's still a heel there that I haven't quite hurdled, and so I'm getting better, but I haven't hurdled it yet. What is your you got to the point where you said, "Screw it, I'm happy with myself." How do we go about doing that, and what advice would you say to somebody like me in that?
Like you, yeah. I know. I've had similar experiences that you mentioned, and what you just said, I've gone through too. Like where I was like, oh my God, I'll look at my pictures when I was in my 20s and be like, what was I complaining about?
Exactly.
But then again, would you think about your future self? What if do you want to be 85 years old thinking about what was I complaining about in my 50s?
Right.
I think about that.
So, right. So then at some point you have, what I did was like, okay, this has to stop. Like I have to just appreciate my body for what it is, even if I have an extra whatever pounds. And I started doing a practice of looking in the mirror and telling myself, I love you. You're beautiful. Like really honing in the areas that I felt did not get enough love from me. And I also started to celebrate the parts of my body that I do love, right? So like, okay, I don't like my feet, I don't like my ankles, but I love my face and my hair. So I'm going to focus on that. Like I'm going to put energy into the places that I love, and then be like, oh yeah, but my feet are great too. Like, so really focusing on what I love about myself and pouring energy into the spaces I don't. And really, it really is a lot of conversations with yourself. Like you have to want to shift how you think about yourself. So looking in the mirror and being like, yes, I am beautiful. Yes, this outfit looks great on me. And also the gratitude, like I'm able to walk. Like when I'm sick, like, you know, it's like, oh my God, I'm sick. And when you're healthy, you're like, thank God I'm healthy.
Right.
And so, having that appreciation of being like, oh my God, I could walk. Oh my God, I'm able to dance. I'm able to move, because there's so many people that are our age or younger or older that cannot. Right. So I think a large part of it is having an extreme gratitude practice for what your body is capable of doing for you. A lot of self-love conversations. And then the celebration piece is wearing the things and doing the things that you feel make you feel good. So if you love, like I love big jewelry, and so I make sure I wear jewelry, and colors, these are things I know that's going to make me feel good. So I focus on that and accentuating the parts of my body that I feel very confident about.
Right.
In order to help me really sink into those places that I don't feel so great about, but always focusing on the positive.
I love that. Extreme gratitude.
Extreme gratitude.
And the body is a blessing and a miracle. I mean, it truly is when you think of all that your body does.
Yeah.
It's just, it is wickedly amazing. So I can get into that, Gina, for
I
sure.
I could too.
So what would you say as a stylist? So I love your background, your parents. I mean, this is awesome.
It's a great story. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And, I can imagine New York Fashion District sounds very, very fun and
exciting.
lively and sexy, really, quite frankly. And
it's fun.
So what would you say to the person who you take to the store that hates everything? I'm not looking at anybody.
What would you say to that person?
What would you say to that person that just, can you fix her?
Well, my first question would be to that person is like, okay, so what do you love? Let's start there. What do you like?
I love? I mean, that's that. I think that is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Actually.
Right. You don't love anything?
I don't. Well, when it comes to fashion, I'm not really a big, it's just sort of not my,
and it never has
been,
been,
one
right?
of those not one of those people that like look through a fashion magazine and go, oh my God, that's it's just not me. It is not me.
You don't have to be.
Right.
Yeah. But
So
that's okay.
So when I think about, and I have a really poor history with my body. I just do not appreciate it in a lot of ways. I find it challenging to make, whenever, and this goes back to my childhood. Like I would go and want to try on the cute pants everybody else has. And I'm always so excited that I think this is going to look great. And I look horrific in them. Like it just doesn't, the what I think I'm going to look like and what I actually do look like are two very different things.
Well, I feel like that's trauma too. We were talking about that, my whole thing was, school shopping. You'd go school shopping before school and you'd get like a couple pieces. We would get a couple pieces and we'd go there and, all the other girls were getting the cute jeans and they didn't fit me right. And I would feel bad. So I'd come home depressed from, and she was talking about that. I was like, I had that same experience. Okay. So there's some trauma from childhood of just not things not turning out right.
Well, and even I had, weight issues my entire life, childhood as well as, all the way through. And, even when I would lose weight, quite a bit of weight, like I still did not feel like I still have to be a large or an extra large, even when I'm at my lowest weight. That's what I am. Like I'm just a bigger body type.
Yeah.
So I'm
Big
never
bones.
going to be what I want to be, right? Like in my mind, what I want to be. And so, there's sort of almost like and I'm not a big fashion person.
I don't think she can fix
I
us.
don't think I need to be fixed. I'm just trying to figure out how do I come to like a healthy spot with it?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you don't have to be a fashion person because not everyone is. And secondly, you have to get dressed. So there's there's a certain level of like you need clothes,
functionality about it.
And I would say the biggest right. Yeah. So the biggest thing is really shifting the mindset around it because it's really about self-acceptance because there's nothing that you can do in this lifetime. You are the way that you are. You're large / extra large.
Yes.
and there's nothing that you can really do about it.
Right.
So I feel you can lose weight, gain weight, but there's going to be a certain space where this is where you're at. And I have to come to those terms as well. Because I always want it in my mind. I'm like, I'm a size 6. And then I'm like, that's just funny. Because I'm never going to be a size 6 unless I don't eat for like an extended amount of time, you know?
Right.
And so I had to accept the fact that I'm a large, extra large, and that's what it is. Right. And, you know, I even had these moments of being like, oh my God, I'm going into plus size territory. Right. And I was like, okay, well, this is what it is. If I do need to go there, then that's what it is. And we all have our freak out moments about it. And you really have to come into a space of internal peace and be like, I love my body for the way it is. The cellulite, the jiggle, the scars, the birthmarks, it's not going to change. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, the sun's going to set and the sun's going to rise. This is what it is. Right. So you really have to shift your mindset around it and be like, okay, this is my body. Okay. So now what? It's a blank canvas. Like, what am I going to do now? And when you start to get into that level of acceptance, and it's not an easy switch, it takes work to really every day remind yourself.
Right.
This is what's happening. So it's like a daily practice. And for me, in order to accept my body, okay, like one of the things that I had to accept, which is a good thing for most women, but for me it was kind of hard, is that my breast kept growing every few years. Yeah. To the point where I'm just like, I know women pay money for this, but like, this is a lot.
Yes.
I know.
And it was kind of traumatic having to, you know, when I went to go buy a bra and I was like, oh yeah, I'm a 34D, and the woman, she looked at me like sideways, like, really, girl?
Maybe at one time in your life, but
she was
not
like,
now. Yeah.
She was like, let me bring you some stuff. And, you know, and then I freaked out when she was like, oh, you're like a G. I was like, what? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I had a whole like 72-hour freak out moment of my friend had to sit me down and be like, yeah, this is what it is. This is what it is.
Master weaver.
And I really had to sit, and this was recently. So, you know, I'm telling you this, but this is something I work through every single day. So it's not like, you know, I've reached the top of the mountain.
Right.
It's really like daily work, and it's going to change because soon they're going to sag, and soon my butt's going to sag, and I'm going to be, you know, God forbid I don't have a walker, but you know, I'm going to get old, and it's really good, and I'm really going to be complaining. So like, do I really want to be complaining, or do I want to just be like, okay, my boobs are sagging, that's what it is.
Serious.
I mean, and how can I enjoy right now?
Well, listen, and we're going to talk quite a bit more in upcoming episodes about
I don't want to be 90 years old, like missing teeth, being like, oh,
energy management.
I wish I could have enjoyed myself when I was in my 40s.
Because
now I look back at my 20s and I'm like, I wish I could have enjoyed my 20s when I was able to wear like Daisy Duke shorts and do all these stuff that I wouldn't do now, but I could have then.
Your energy level to go do things.
But I thought I was so big.
Like how much,
and so
how long can you go before you need to take a break, right?
And then also in terms of the clothing bit,
a very small
I
part
am 100%
of what energy
positive
is for
that you
human
have
beings.
at least one thing
we need to spend some more time on
that
that.
when
For
you
sure.
wear that you
Lots of
like.
exciting episodes coming.
I
Baby,
know.
And get your
I'm out here in the
freebie.
world. If you
Go
don't
on
have that,
LA
you need to find that. We need to
I
find you
used
a
to
dress.
have that. I do not have
I
that.
was going to ask you about
Well,
that, Carine. I was going to say, don't you think that you should have at least like one thing or two things that you just feel, okay, I look good. I mean, maybe I'm not like on the moon, but yeah, I'm rocking it today, and I look pretty good. And
Right.
everybody has to
Yeah.
have that, don't you think?
Everyone has that.
For your friends.
Yeah.
And even if it's
not
not
only
a
get your
clothing, maybe
information,
you
but
can't
other
find a piece
signs
of
and
clothing
what
that makes
they-
you feel
but
that way, but maybe you do your hair a
Why
certain
not
way.
do
and
that?
Yeah.
And if you
do
like
amazing makeup. You do something.
episode
A hat,
today,
earrings, something. So there has to
go
be,
and
you know,
rate us on
maybe
Apple.
there's a piece of
Subscribe
jewelry.
and
There's something
rate us
that
and
you have that
subscribe
makes you feel
and
great.
comment if
Right.
you feel so inclined.
And that's what you
We
lean
love
in,
it.
and that's what you
to
lean
not tell me
into.
more drunk Gina stories, you can
Right?
email us,
If clothing is
at
not your
LOA
thing, maybe
@gmail.
just wear black all the time and wear dope earrings
I
and
would
wear
really
amazing
appreciate that.
necklaces.
You know,
Yeah.
I
No,
would
that's right.
appreciate if you sent
Until
emails about
you
what
feel
stories
like you
want
wanna
to hear
move
about
into a
Holly,
different
like drunk
direction.
Holly stories or
Totally.
overly.
love
I like that.
Well,
I like
and you know, my
bodily
mother's
busyness
94,
stories.
and so
Whatever
she's
you'd
the
like.
one that said
Just
your breasts keep growing.
please send us an email.
And she says,
All right, with
she
that.
says, as they get bigger, then I have to flop them over my shoulder because they're like pancakes. Anyway, I just thought I'd do that as a public service announcement.
Wow.
She's very spicy. Okay.
They become flatsies.
She's like, they just become flat and you just flop them over your shoulder. They're so big. Okay, so stuff them in. Anyway, I
Oh
saw,
my God, that's
these
awesome.
are the things nobody tells you about the gray hair coming out of your
Nobody
chin.
told me.
Nobody tells you that
Right?
your breasts keep
Nobody
going and they get
No.
shrinkier and flatter and
The hair starts not.
They got
growing and
hairs
falling around.
start growing.
No, everything. Yes.
That
not
was
good.
very disturbing.
Yes.
Very disturbing.
It
Hair,
was
hair on my nipples. I was like, what is this?
yeah.
This is not okay. This is not okay. Like I was not.
No, it's true.
Like if I ever have a conversation with God, that's gonna be on the list. Like,
Yeah,
that
I
doesn't
think
need-
that's a
doesn't
good
need to
thing
happen.
to bring up
Doesn't
for
need to
this
happen.
for the betterment of people going forward. Yeah, I think that's a good one. That's a
I
good one.
love it.
Yeah, you go to WebMD
Yeah.
going hairs on nipple. Like what causes that? Like there's clearly something that
Right.
I have to be the only one who has it.
Yeah,
like there's
no.
a disease
Oh
or
my
something.
God.
No, and it seems like it's just I don't even know what it is. It's hormone. I haven't figured it out, but it's like
gotta be,
hormones and just aging and the one hair that out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing that surprises me, the thing that surprises me is like, I have a mirror that's like 15 times, okay, so that I can see this. And for some reason, those hairs are already an inch long by the time you find them. How is that possible? How'd they grow
I agree.
overnight? They
I
grew
agree.
overnight. Okay.
Overnight.
how did I
Overnight.
not see this for the last 2 months? This thing had to be
I
growing.
agree.
I have a tool that allows me to see. Okay.
that's
and
so true.
somehow it's an inch before I find it. I'm like,
So true.
And then it's like,
I agree.
how many other people saw
So
this
true.
before
So
me?
true.
I literally ask myself the same questions every time. I'm like, yeah. But these are the moments where like you have to be like, okay, find the joy, find the laughter, accept it, and then move on. And so that's the kind of thing that really the mindset. So like even the idea of the law of attraction, right? Like shifting your mindset, because if you are thinking about positively aging, loving yourself more, accepting yourself more, then your aging process will be more enjoyable. Right? You'll probably get maybe less illnesses, less aches and pains, one would think, right? Because your mindset's more on celebration, going outside, enjoying life, as opposed to sitting around being miserable. All the areas in the world where people live over 100 are positive in the space where they're around community. They're like they're hanging around the youth. They have an upliftment, which keeps your soul fulfilled. And you start to realize that this body doesn't really matter in a lot of ways. It's what's inside.
Right.
Like our heart matters, our soul matters, and our body is a temple to house the spirit. And when you focus on the spirit, then the body becomes secondary. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm getting older, but I'm getting wiser. I'm getting more free. I'm letting go of all this crap, this emotional stuff that I don't need. You become lighter. And then your face starts to shine. And you have this inner glow that people are like, what are you doing? Is that Botox? No, it's called forgiveness.
I love that
you said that, because I really believe it is a mindset, and forgiveness and love is a huge part of it. And, one of the things that I have always said, even back in my 20s, I remember saying, I'm going to have my plastic surgery fund. And we haven't talked about plastic surgery, and then I was like, as I got older, then I'm like, I'm Benjamin Button. I'm having more fun, and I'm more joyful and more loving and less unhappy than I ever was. And I swear it makes a difference. And I kept saying, and every day I say, oh, I'm going backwards. I look in the mirror when I'm putting on my makeup. I'm like, wow, I'm going backwards. Okay. And I actually think that, she's going to think I'm crazy, but I actually think that daily.
Yes.
And what happens when you think that is, I know what my chronological age is, but what happens is you find people and things that help you go backwards. So we find you, and then you help style us, or you help do acupuncture, energy healing that takes away some trauma or pain. I find a product from you that actually I'm in love with, and because all these things actually help you go backwards. And the biggest thing is forgiveness and joy and love for self. That's why we've spent a bunch of time talking about that, because I think that's one of the hardest things that we can do is somehow it's probably easier to forgive
work is
other
ours to
people,
do, yeah.
but we don't forgive ourselves
Yeah.
for not loving ourselves, or forgive ourselves for eating that piece of pie last night, whatever that is. There shouldn't be any forgiveness around that, but yet we hold on to it. So I mean, I think that's the biggest thing to aging backwards is mindset, don't you?
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
It's a total mindset. And it's the looking at it like the glass is half full, as opposed to like, for me, I was looking at getting old as like this dreadful thing in my younger years. I was like, oh my God. I mean, when you're a teenager and somebody tells you they're 30, you're thinking they're ancient. You're like,
Oh
you're an
yeah,
old lady.
I know. So true.
And the moment you hit 30, but I freaked out at 30. I'm like, oh my God, I'm an adult. Like, what am I supposed to do now? And every decade became this like, oh no, I'm getting older. I'm getting older. I'm getting closer to diabetes and dementia and all these things. And I'm just like, why am I going there?
Right.
And as opposed to being like, okay, I'm getting older. I'm getting wiser. I'm getting sexier. I'm getting more confident. I'm more free. Like, I could live a life that I want to live. It doesn't have to stop because I'm no longer young. And that's why I wanted to create the Carrinna website and community, because in the fashion world and beauty world, only the young are celebrated. Only the very thin are celebrated. They're getting better with the plus size and all of that.
They
but
are.
But I feel like they're leaving out middle-aged women. It's like you're a really old person or you're young. And there's nothing to celebrate middle-aged women. Like most of the women that are buying clothes that are the biggest buying power are between 40 and 60.
Yeah.
This is the women that are going out and buying things because they have the means now.
Yeah.
Right? It's nice to be in your 40s, you have the means, you're confident, you're like, okay, I can like show off my body now because I don't care. Like when you're younger, you're like, well, I don't know, should I? You have all these insecurities.
Yeah.
True.
You hit a certain
We should all walk around naked at that age.
right.
And
You're
be
like,
happy about it, right? Yeah,
right.
So true.
Like I remember going to the first time I went to a Korean spa, and I was like, I was super like, oh my God, I don't know, I'm naked. These old ladies are walking around talking, legs all open, and I was like,
It's true.
I know too much. I know too much.
I was kind of like, I like this. They're comfortable. They don't care. They have bellies and everything's rolling. They're just laughing. And I'm like, that's what it is. Like getting older is a celebration of your body, of who you are, your essence, your intelligence. I mean, I think this is why, this is my opinion, but I think the patriarchy really puts down women as they get older because they know as women get older, we get wiser, we get stronger, we become more powerful. So tell us that we're invisible, that we don't matter for so long, that women think that, and it's not true. Women become more powerful as they age, and even in Chinese medicine, our power gets released, our essence is released during our menstrual cycle. So once our menstruation stops, that energy goes back inside, which is why elderly women are so revered, because now they have all that energy that's no longer being released with their menses to harness it and use it for creativity or whatever they want.
Dr. Wu tells me.
You're acupuncturist.
He
No, I
says
love
the
that.
same thing.
Oh, that's
He
beautiful.
says
Right.
more power. You will become more powerful and more young.
Right. So women get more powerful as we age. We become more sexual. We become more like, yes. And that's what the patriarchy is trying to die down. And I'm like, no, I'm not having it. I'm not having it.
I love it.
Let me go. Yes.
Well, I
have one quick question. I know we're really tight on time, but I wanted to talk to you because we talk about it quite a bit on the podcast around celebration. And that's super important to you, and you feel like that's a really important element or foundation to the life that you're co-creating with the universe. So can you talk a little bit about your philosophy around celebration, what kinds of things you celebrate, and what you feel is the importance of that practice?
Yeah, the celebration goes hand in hand with the gratitude. So for me, it's celebrating the little moments, because of course we have these big moments like birthdays and, big things that happen in your life. But for me, it's like the little things that matter. Like today I did a podcast episode. I'm going to celebrate that. Like, oh my God, I was on a podcast. That's so great. Like, like having these little moments and acknowledging them and being like, this happened to me today. Like I got to work safely. Yay. No car accidents. I'm safe. Like, I think it's important to acknowledge all the amazing things that happened to you. Like, oh, I ate this amazing meal. It's so wonderful. Thank you. And having a joyful attitude around everything that's given, because in a lot of ways our life, at least for me, the way I think about it, is such a gift and such a blessing. And in a lot of ways, I'm so blessed to be in America, good and bad issues with that, but for the most part, it's good, and living the life I live, having my own place, having my own business. So I just always have to remind myself my life is great. I don't have all the things I want yet. I'm still working on them, but overall, I could celebrate today. I'm alive, I'm breathing, I'm healthy. So I always have to remind myself, today is a good day.
Beautiful.
Like, I don't know about tomorrow, but this very moment is a good day and a good moment. So I think it's important to be in the moment and celebrating that very moment, and not really worrying about tomorrow or yesterday, but being present. So for me, celebration means being present and having gratitude for every moment.
I love that. Thank you so
Beautiful.
much. So tell us a little tiny bit about, we've talked a little bit about it, but what your hopes and dreams are for Carrinna, and who you are inviting into your community. And then we will tell everybody how to get a hold of you, and we will put it all in our show notes.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so Carrinna, like you mentioned earlier, it's spelled Carrinna, and there's a website up. And Carrinna is all about a community. So I'm inviting women or people that identify as women that are over 40 that really want to celebrate aging through style, beauty, and wellness. And the platform is going to have a lot of educational tools, but ultimately it's a place where you can eventually be able to shop. And there's going to be an e-commerce site that I'm building. So that'll be with models that look like us. And there's going to be product recommendations. And so, it's a rolling out slowly. But right now, the services that I'm offering, if you're local, is facial acupuncture. I'm also offering style consultation, so I can do color, body type. And then my favorite part is finding your joyous style, like helping women tap into their joy and how they can really get that self-acceptance and self-love, and have their clothing and style emulate the joy that they want to build or have in their life. And so those are the two things that you can purchase on the site. And also you can download a free 9 simple tips for graceful aging through style, beauty, and wellness. You can download that, and that also give you some insight on the brand. And and you can also connect with me on Instagram on carrinna.co. I'm also on TikTok working that out, and I'm also building my YouTube channel. So they're all under the same name. And you can always email me too at hello@carrinna.com and connect with me that way if you have any questions or curious about how you can celebrate your aging. And if you have any questions around beauty, style, overall wellness, how you can tap into more self-love and have that radiate through your face and style.
Oh, God.
Okay.
I need some joy radiating through my face.
You are joy.
I know. I need more, though. I mean, you could, and then
love it.
have it expressed everywhere. That is great.
I love this conversation
I do too.
today.
This is fantastic.
Thank you so much for being with us, Carine. And I'm excited about
Thank you.
Carrinna.
We are
and
super excited about Carrinna.
Yeah. And thank you for empowering women. And I think that's really important right now, that we all empower one another to be our best. And
I love that you are doing it through your own story, because I think the storytelling and, really helps people see themselves and in their journey and your journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important for women to continue to do, because it does change the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a beautiful story.
Totally.
Yeah.
all right, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks again.